Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tournament Center here at Pro Tour Magic Origins in Vancouver, Canada. I'm Brian David Marshall, and I am joined by Senior Game Designer at Wizards of the Coast, Sam Stoddard. Sam, you were the lead developer for Magic Origins?
Yeah, this is my first lead. It was my first lead set. Very happy with it.
Congratulations.
Very excited to be here. It's just great to see all the things that we were thinking up and these decks we built, and then seeing which one of them's transitioned to actually being Pro Tour decks, and which ones, are sorely missed.
Now, there were a couple of cards that I know, we were talking on Thursday night,
Yeah.
we had some really nice sushi, we were talking,
Great
and you said
sushi.
there were a couple cards you really wanted to see in action. I
Right.
really wanted to get you in here to talk about this deck, because one of those cards
It is.
is hanging out here. Let's take a look at Blue-Red Tutelage, and let's talk about some of the cards here in Andrew Cuneo's deck. Come on over here and talk to me a little bit about Magmatic Insight.
So, Magmatic Insight, it's just kind of an interesting card. It gives a new spin on the whole red likes to loot thing, but you can only do lands, unlike Tormenting Voice right next to it, that is 2 mana, but that's 1 mana.
Right, so both of these cards have important phrase, draw 2 cards.
Right, they have true cards. It costs you something, but, you do get to draw cards. You kind of filter through your deck.
Right, and it's kind of like often 2 cards for 2 cards, which
Right.
is card selection versus card advantage.
Red has to stay kind of at card parity. It can't really go up cards very easily.
Okay, well, blue on the other hand.
Blue gets 2. Not this card, though. This one doesn't technically, right away, go up cards. it just loots. It gets you, 1 for 1, but the other side, maybe that one goes up cards a bit.
Okay. So we have all these cards that are saying draw cards, even if we're discarding cards in the process. Let's take a look at the next set of cards and see. Did you really did? Come on.
No, okay. I'll admit, we did not have Sphinx's Tutelage. We certainly had Alhammar's Archive with a lot of the sort of looting effects, the red effects especially, where you were drawing and discarding, because you cast Alhammar's Archive, you pay 1 red mana, discard 2 lands, discard a land, draw 4. That's great. You can get up a lot.
Sign me up.
Right. Now, we had these decks, and we were kind of having a hard time killing people. It was well, you just have to basically discard a lot of cards, draw a lot of cards, and burn them out eventually. Had some goggles in those decks to kind of help out with it, but they were a little too dirtily, never really kind of got there in our own Future League. The part we never put together with it is going, oh, well, what about Sphinx's Tutelage, where, and it's the 4-1 split. It's you play the Tutelage, and it's amazing how fast you burn through your opponent's library when you're drawing 4 cards a turn. It's surprising. It's amazing, really.
So what is the goal with a card like Sphinx's Tutelage? What did you guys hope this card would become?
This is really mostly a card for limited. It's trying to evoke kind of what life is like on Vryn, which is Jace's home plane. That's where his Sphinx mentor lives, and it was trying to be, okay, Jace is a mind mage, his mentor's a mind mage, and this lets you turn the battle away from being just about damage, and all of a sudden, you have a huge advantage where the more you learn, the more your opponent sort of forgets and loses, and then if you can learn all the things, your opponent forgets all the things and they deck themselves.
So the cards we saw that said draw 2 cards, you draw 2, they mill 4, and possibly if they share a color, you mill more. And again, Alhammar's Archive, that's doing the same thing. Let's see what else is in the deck that's making this come together.
Right, you can't have this deck without doing nothing else. Dictative Crufix, it's a Howling Mine. It lets you do the same thing with Magmatic Insight of being able to draw more cards when you have the Tutelage out. Plus, again, if you have the Archive out, all of a sudden, it's not parity anymore. The great thing about the Archive for this deck is it breaks all the parities. So Dictative Crufix, instead of being we each draw the same number of cards, I'm drawing 2, you're drawing 1. Dig Through Time,
that's just an unfair card. We understand
that's
works.
That's just a fair card. That's just good bread and butter magic.
I got to tell you, I watched Andrew Cuneo play a match against Shota Yasuoka. So it's blue-black control against blue-red control, and I basically watched Andrew Cuneo treasure cruise to the win.
It's nice.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about this deck, of course, is that most decks what you'd see are a bunch of Dig Through Times and only maybe 1 treasure cruise, maybe. This one's actually looking for that phrase, draw a card. Dig Through Time doesn't draw cards. Dig Through Time gets card selection, it gets cards in your hands, but it doesn't actually trigger either Alhammar's Archive or the Sphinx's Tutelage.
Okay, let's keep moving along. Let's see what's going on here. So
the control elements. You got to kill things. I was certainly not expecting to see Send to Sleep anywhere in Constructed, but hey, happy to see it.
2 copies of Send to Sleep, 4 copies of Anger of the Gods, especially with all the rally decks going around right now. This seems like an excellent card.
Oh, for sure. This is just going to be able to deal with those, the mono red decks. Keeps everything kind of like low to the ground.
Yeah. Roast, obviously. How happy are you to see Whelming Wave?
I've had many arguments within R&D about whether or not Whelming Wave was like something that would ever kind of see constructed play, and I was like, oh, you never know. Like, blue doesn't get Wrath of Gods. It doesn't, it got Ether Spouts. It gets a little bit of stuff like that. And I had some faith that someone somewhere would find a deck where Whelming Wave would be very, notice he doesn't have any Leviathans, Octopuses, or Krakens.
Right. It's not Overwhelming Wave.
Which is right. It's not overwhelming.
It is just whelming.
But he is, he's using this. His opponent, let's say they put a scissors on something, all of a sudden it's just like, okay, well, get rid of the enchantment, put your Darksteel Citadel back in your hand.
Right, you actually get to return a Darksteel Citadel.
Right.
And there's actually very, very few things we've seen in this format that actually successfully deal with a Darksteel Citadel.
Right, this is one of the great ways of doing it.
Yeah, all right, let's keep moving on. We'll look at the lands. Temple of Epiphany, Swiftwater Cliffs, 4 Shivan Reefs. A deck like this, you need to stay alive, Radiant Fountain.
And again, the Alharmon's Archive doubles life gain. So all of a sudden, Saltwater Cliffs, it's 2 life.
Oh, look at
Radiant
this.
Fountain, 4.
Always thinking
Thought
that
about
Andrew Cuneo. Okay, well, let's keep going. I think we got we got 4 islands, 5 mountains, a strand, a mire. I think that's it for the main deck. There's a card I really want to talk about in the sideboard.
Okay, good.
So let's look at it. Talent of the Telepath.
Yep, that is another card I'm really happy to see showing up. It's not a card you want main deck usually because there are just too many decks where you're going to play it and just totally whiff. There's a lot of very heavy creature-based decks. But against decks that are trying to cast Dig Through Time or even Treasure Cruise, I mean, Talent you get a Dig Through Time is pretty powerful. If you have Spell Mastery, Talent you get a removal spell and Dig Through Time, or heaven forbid 2 Dig Through Times. That's a huge swing.
So when you're designing a card and going and developing the set and fine-tuning it, is Talent of the Telepath a card you have an eye on for constructed? Is this a card, not just Commander or for, because certainly this is a card you think about in Commander as being a lot of fun, but I mean, is this something you think about people playing in a serious tournament environment?
Yeah, I mean, we played quite a bit of it. I know it wasn't necessarily the best card that we had, but we certainly were playing around with it just to make sure that, it wasn't something where it's like, if I just cast it, well, what happens if I cast it? You don't want to let a card like this that has a huge ability to dodge mana just randomly go out in the world without spending enough due diligence, making sure that you're not going to do anything too crazy with it.
So Talent of the Telepath, I mean, it's basically dig through their time.
Dig through their time.
Yeah.
Not my time. My time is valuable. Your time I can use.
All right, let's take a look quickly at the rest of the sideboard. Disperse, Encase in Ice, Seismic Rupture, Fiery Impulse.
Yep, just more removal, more ways of dealing with the decks that the deck, this is going to actually have issues with very aggressive decks.
Right.
And so it looks like there's a lot of things to bring in against this.
You're going to give me some secrets from R&D here now about how I can tune this deck to bring it to my Friday Night Magic this week?
If you're going to Friday Night Magic, I would put more Alharmon's Archives in, mostly, but that's the fun part of the deck is when you're doing the really crazy stuff, when you're, every turn you're drawing 8 cards and milling your opponents out. Cuneo, he very well might have had the right number there, but it is more fun if you're doing bigger things. He doesn't have the most
fun. He hasn't maximized
He doesn't have
fun.
He's not maximized fun.
Okay. All right. For Sam Stoddard, this is Brian David Marshall, maximizing our fun as we send it back to Rich Hagon at the desk.